It is the Anfield Wrap. Neil Atkinson here with John Gibbons, Mo Stewart and Rob Gutmann to work through Liverpool 2, Manchester United 2, a savage defeat as far as I'm concerned, this one. And we'll go from there. Listen, we are partnering with Peloton, who are the official digital fitness partner of Liverpool Football Club. And Peloton prides itself on empowering its members. We're going to be teaming up to show fans this year how we score together through thousands of workouts. And John, you sent me a picture of one you were in the midst of last week with the wonderful Leanne.
Yeah, I did a 90s rock session with Leanne, which was boss. But I thought like it would be like Nirvana and stuff like that. But I thought, this would be fun. She went full Britpop. We had Supergrass smoke.
Oh, really?
Honestly, I was like trying to get my phone out of my pocket, nearly falling off the bike to send screenshots to say, because I know Neil is a big Leanne fan anyway. But now we know Leanne loves Supergrass. I think I've got a spare to the Liverpool gig. I might see if Leanne fancy's coming. Be a great night. My sister's coming, which always guarantees a lot.
Does she sing along with the songs?
She will. Yeah, if it's
wow.
yeah, she.
You join in a bit.
Yeah. And before you know,
she goes, "You've got this."
Yeah, you've done an epic workout.
Yeah, she knows there's a lot of you've got this, and then you have.
I know.
That's the best part.
My score was through the roof.
Was
honestly,
it? Yeah.
Honestly, breaking PBs all over the gap. It was class.
You had that
exactly. So recommend it. And 90s rock with Leanne. Oh, I might go do it now. So I don't have to talk about this.
Be better to talk about Liverpool 2, Manchester United 2. And no mistake, listen, there is with Peloton. Right now there is an offer. Find your push, find your power with up to £450 off selected Peloton Bike Plus and Tread packages at onepeloton.co.uk. That offer ends on the 21st of January 2025. You need an internet connection and Peloton all access membership at £39 per month. It is required. The terms are there at onepeloton.co.uk. All right then, Liverpool 2, Manchester United 2, whether we like it or not, Roberto. It was a real kick in the teeth. There's no getting away from it. It doesn't feel as though Liverpool had hard lines. The data is actually a little bit kinder to Liverpool than the eyes were whilst watching the game. I was surprised straight after the match when they were putting high expected goals on Sky Stats Bomb. I've still got Liverpool's around 2.2 expected goals over the course of the game. United at 0.9. The data genuinely, I think, is kind in that regard, because I don't think anyone genuinely feels as though Liverpool played well.
No, but it's still too early, really, to separate out the sense of crushing disappointment from the reality of what happened on the pitch. The one thing that's definitely true, I think, before the fog totally clears, is that Man United played about 500% better than anyone anticipated they would play. Arne Slot said in his pre-match press conference, and it did sound a bit like toffee, but maybe he just meant it, that they are not the team that their league position suggests. They're clearly not. I felt that whether they were or weren't, there was always the possibility of a derby-like performance, that each man would play 20% better than he had played all season. And unfortunately, we got that. A lot of it was about what Manchester United brought. I'm still not sure of the eye test versus the stats, as you said, because of the sense of disappointment. I think it's heightened by the opportunity that Arsenal appeared to present to us in drawing the night before with Brighton. I felt going into the game more nervous than I had been sort of the day before, because I thought, shit, we could win the league here. As far as I was concerned, if we'd won that and had given ourselves the potential to go 11 clear at the top, the game, assuming we'd win our game in hand, I thought that starts to be, even if it's not technically, of course it's not technically a title in the bag, but it would have begun to be very psychologically crushing on Arsenal. And it's very hard to see past that sense of disappointment. If Liverpool, and football is a great game of hindsight, Liverpool get themselves into a 2-1 lead, and we can argue whether we deserved it or not, or whether we only slightly deserved it or slightly didn't deserve it. But had we then followed it up with a quick rat-a-tat third, we'd have moved on to a victory, which we'd have been able to put so much of it behind, so much of the sort of discontent felt yesterday afternoon behind us. So I have no clear answer other than I'm still crushingly disappointed, and it's going to take me a while to make sense of what I saw yesterday in front of me.
Rob is still processing.
It's a man who had his birthday ruined, so I have a lot of sympathy for him.
Yes,
the worst birthday I've ever had. Can't think of one worse.
And the obvious joke to make right now is and you've had so many.
You've had so many.
In amongst it all, Mo, putting aside the fact that it very much soured the Rob's sweet birthday cake that he has every year with lots of icing on and fondant and things.
Lots of candles.
I've got a no birthday cake policy. It's very strict. I just have to say this.
Is that right?
Yeah, they offered to buy me a birthday cake. I said, no, I don't want to. I'd rather have a birthday kebab. You can stick a fucking candle in it. I'm very savoury as opposed to sweet.
Excellent news for all interested parties.
Sorry, notes.
There is with it, Mo. Just that sense that Liverpool never seemed at it.
No.
I think this is the takeaway point. That I think there's lots of context around that. I think that United set up a certain way. I want to get into the tactical aspect of it. That made it difficult for Liverpool to be at it. I think that part of their entire plan was do not let them get rhythm, do not let them establish. It's interesting Liverpool score 2 pretty quick goals when they do manage to get some rhythm.
Yeah.
That said, though, Liverpool just never seemed at it. And it's not the first time in first halves at Anfield that's been the case.
No, and it's not the first time we've come into a game against a poor Manchester United team and we've kind of let them off the hook a little bit, because literally the same thing happened last season. And while last season we did have a lot more of attacking play, we had lots of shots here, there and everywhere, the feeling remained after the game that we didn't do what we were supposed to do. It's funny because I did ask Arne Slot about this before the game, and I said to him about what is it about making sure the dominance in the league table is reflected in the final scoreboard. And the first thing he said was working hard. And I feel like United are worked harder than Liverpool, particularly in the first half, but over the course of the full game. And when the tactics, the conditions, all those other things are variables, but in a game against Manchester United, that should be a non-negotiable. So there's no way that should be allowed to happen. Sometimes we've seen Liverpool when they've had a full week's rest and we think, okay, they're going to be raring to go, they're going to be right at it. They're actually a little bit stagnant. And I remember we talked about this on the Friday night about how I wanted to show them no respect, complete contempt. And there are ways you show contempt to an opposition. There are sometimes it's like, well, we don't have to put the full effort in to beat you. We're just going to kind of hold you off. That's one way of doing it. The better way of doing it is to just be out there and steamroller them and not even look back, just go straight over them. And that was the one I wanted to see. Unfortunately, what we saw was the other one.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because you can talk a lot about tactics and formations and things like that, but application is just as important. And that's what United showed, and there's no one coming away talking about 3-4-3 and whether it suits players and things like that for Manchester United. They just applied themselves properly, and even at 0-0, even before they'd really started creating chances, I was like, you can see they've got good players. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was tough conditions, but they were controlling it fine. They were popping it round to each other. I thought they sort of passed it well, and so even before they were really causing us problems, you could see that they're a good team, but it's frustrating how we're allowing people to settle and we're allowing people to grow in confidence. And these slow starts that you've both talked about there, it's all well and good saying, we'll sort it out second half, but you could see at Man United, they've not been the first club to do it. The first team who've gone, we're doing all right here. Do you know what I mean? This is going okay. Liverpool top of the league. We were worried about it, but they're not really hurting us. We have a good 10 minutes, don't we? That's been a bit forgotten about 10 to 20. Gakpo has a good chance. I think you'd expect him to score with the form he's in. He just sort of pulls it wide. And then McAllister has a really good chance, and I think it's a good save. I think he's just got to sort of hit that, and he does everything right. Hits it first time, hits it low, controls it. It's a good save. But that is a good period from Liverpool. And I'm thinking, well, okay, because we're creating chances and we'll keep doing it. But then we just sort of stopped and they grew in confidence. They have a decent chance themselves just before half time, and then second half I think they go, okay, well there might be a bit of an onslaught now, and then it just doesn't happen, and then they start playing the football again, and I think this sort of creeping into games or creeping into halves, in the period of the second half is sort of all well and good, but we do need to start considering what it's doing to the opposition, especially like Mo said, opposition who's coming a little bit sort of fearful, a little bit, worried about their own form, worried about what sort of Liverpool might do, and then they come and it's a bit sort of and what. And I think, I used to hear ponderous on post match, and I just felt we were sort of caught between two stools of maybe trying to be a bit too careful with the ball because of the conditions, but then also getting around the box and then just going, we'll just put it in. Do you know what I mean? And it was it wasn't very smart. I don't think we weren't very smart. We weren't very purposeful. We didn't make use of the fact that we are on top at the moment, and we are the superior club, and you can make it. You can look to reinforce that earlier, and we didn't. And just apart from an odd moment, just a really disappointing performance.
Just the odd thing I think about the starts, John, is they've actually started the last 2 away games absolutely brilliantly. But in the meantime, the last 2 home games are Leicester and Manchester United, and they didn't start either of them well.
And Fulham.
I think Fulham's got the manager's mitigation around Fulham with reference to the injury, the clobbering, the yellow that could be a red. I actually had a bit of sympathy for when he framed that in a press conference. I thought, what, I can see where he's coming from there. But it is striking to me, John, it should be harder to go away from home and impose yourselves. But good God, they've done that. And I just think I think there is something, and that's what makes me sort of wonder a bit about it. Yeah. Because if it was just like, well, that's the way this team plays, or alternatively, maybe they're just not quite at the level yet, or et cetera, you've got really good examples of them going into games and starting blisteringly quick, and yet at home that just does appear to be a little bit tougher.
Yeah, there's a few clubs in the Premier League who are sort of like it now, and it's interesting. There's whether it's a space thing, I don't know. There's quite a few clubs are knocking around who, away from home where there's sort of space and they can spring, do it sort of really well, and then at home when the opposition go, okay, well, we're going to sit back and what have you got? I found a little bit wanting. I wouldn't quite say Liverpool are sort of that far because our home record, is sort of still pretty good, but it does feel at the moment that we're a little bit more suited to play it away. We're a bit more sure of the game plan. We're a bit more sure of ourselves. Maybe on the evidence of yesterday, they don't have to play in front of our crowd. That'll probably fucking help them on Wednesday as well, because they were a disgrace, an absolute disgrace, our fans. And I don't know how you're meant to play football in front of that, really. So that's something to consider. But I think, it is... starting with purpose is another way to get fans on side, and the fact you have to do that against Man United at home is frustrating, but the reality of the situation is, fast starts sort of would help, and, allowing nerves to kick in, allowing anxiety to kick in, and allowing, as I said, the confidence of the other team to increase just feels like you're making it harder for yourself.
The game it made me think of, Rob, is if you go back to 2019 at home against Leicester. The one which finishes 1-1, where there was a lot of weather.
Harry Maguire scores, Harry
Maguire scores. More startling weather, it's worth saying. I mean, the weather before that Leicester match was absolutely mad. But then one of the things that then happens is that it became a crowd that was full of anxiety and really struggled to support the side that night. We talked about it post-match. There was elements of that, and I think there was elements of that in this one as well. But also the same thing sort of applies, which is that Liverpool don't in that one they score first, they get the opening goal, but then they just sort of struggle to assert themselves. And I think that this is, to me, this is the both tactical and practical frustration when most talking about application. Liverpool, I think, come away from that game against Manchester United when they are top of the league and it is on their ground. And at no point do I feel like Liverpool asserted themselves.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking about while we were all talking about these slow starts. It contrasts with Madrid and City, which come just before that phase where we do start very quickly. I sometimes think you can forgive any team of any quality a slow first 5 to 7, and I'm not quite sure the slow start narrative is fair entirely yesterday. What I want to know is what happened post the 20th minute, because as I said, you're coming out. The weather was horrendous walking up to the stadium. I wouldn't have liked to come out to that tunnel to play. And I heard somebody say I think it was Stu Wright in one of the post-match things, United would have seen that as a free hit. So for it to be a mad, chaotic game where they just ran around a bit and frustrated us, was always going to be the way. But I thought we were showing, had we bagged, we had 3 or 4 chances in that 10. Is it 10 to 20? I don't know if it was. The Gakpo chance, which is really good, as John, and the
that's a good move.
That's a great move. I felt at the point, I think the last of them was a piece of Gravenberch magic. I could only describe as when he takes the ball on the half turn, spins his man, breaks into the space. Now he gets away a really good shot, which is inches wide. But I was frustrated by the fact they didn't have options, and I thought, hang on, what's going on here? Why are we suddenly not getting options? That was to me a sign that we were losing a bit of thought and process to the way we were attacking, and it seemed to disintegrate after that. I have to flag one thing which has increasingly frustrated me in recent matches, more so. I don't know why, but it certainly was yesterday. how absolutely shocking we are at set pieces.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Arsenal are shining a light on the value of set pieces. But I noticed when United were getting fouled 5-10 yards into our half, they made that an opportunity to get near our goal by positioning men on the edge of our box and taking a set piece. Every time we had that situation, it was a quick 2-yard free kick, and we ended up half the time back in our own fucking penalty area.
We went back to the goalie.
I understand baiting presses and drawing people on and possession and all that. But the evidence doesn't bear that. I'm sorry, at the end of the day, sometimes if you're given an opportunity to go direct where one fortuitous second ball and you're going to score, which is what happens from there, there's got to be a bit more old-fashionedness about it sometimes. But more than that, I can live with that because that's almost like one of the oldest dichotomies in football, teams that just put it down and play and teams that play for a set piece in those situations. But at corner kicks, their corners were really scary. I mean, I know that's psychological, but everyone was hung under our bar and felt like Alisson had to get a really good punch on it to get them away at times. Ours were doing nothing to them.
The annoying thing about our set pieces as well wasn't just the fact that ours weren't working well delivery-wise, but if you look at the way Man United have defended set pieces over the last month, they've been really poor.
Yeah.
And
worst in the league.
The one thing that has been a constant in all of those is that the opposition put a player right in front of Onana so he couldn't come out and claim the ball or couldn't get a clean punch on it. We did that once in the whole game, and that once was the only time we looked like we were going to score from a corner.
He caught it twice. Keeper should never be catching a ball from a corner.
And it was almost like, well, why aren't we doing that? That was obvious. Like, there are times when you have your own game plan, but there are times when it's like, well, okay, well, we can adapt our game plan because they've got a specific weakness about this point. And in a tight game, and again, Slot referenced set pieces before the game when I said to him, the second thing he said after working hard
second on the list.
Yeah. And so you'd have expected them to have a real plan for that, and it didn't really feel like that was the case. But yeah, I mean, the slow starting stuff, it's difficult to kind of understand really why it was different. But if you think about, Rob referenced the City in the Real Madrid game, those are teams who we went into it knowing we're going to have to be at our best to win. Even City, poor form, we're like, okay, we're still going to need to play. We're going to need to be at our best to beat them. I still feel like there was the feeling that we didn't need to be at our best to beat this Manchester United team.
This is the key point.
Well, on that, I'll come back to it first. Rob also referenced that Gravenberch moment. It does really well in the middle of the park. Spins past 3, the space opens up, but then there was no option.
No.
And I think that tactically for Liverpool, I think it is a game where you can ask a couple of questions along those sorts of lines, because, you know, the number of times I was looking at Liverpool and feeling like there's just not enough options here in the final third. And that was...
They felt like they had more players to this.
Yeah. Well, we weren't moving them enough. They were in their low blocks, so they had the bank of 5 in front of it, the bank of 4, and the point was they were trying to squeeze the space on the edge of the box so we couldn't get into pockets and start operating around them. The problem is that whenever a team has a tactic where they're trying really hard to squeeze one area of space, that always means that there is areas of space elsewhere that aren't being utilised. And we could have used more on the outside. So it's ironic because against Leicester, I felt like we were doing that too much. They were giving us the space on the outside. We were going out there and crossing it, and it was just getting eaten up by the centre halves. This time, I felt like we needed to create that wider pitch. So there were times when Gakpo got the ball or Diaz got the ball, Robertson made the overlapping run, and he didn't get it.
Yeah.
They would cut back inside. And if he gets it, they've got to fan out. And then you've got runners who can come in and find a bit more space. And so it's like one tactic feeding into another. I don't think that we caused them enough trouble in terms of they didn't have to move out of their shape. And so that was why it kind of got a bit stagnated. Like that period that we've all referenced in terms of where we looked like the dam was going to burst. So the McAllister shot, like we don't have another shot on target until Gakpo's goal, which is like the 59th minute. And that McAllister shot was like the 14th minute or something. So we aren't causing them any kind of trouble. And at the same time, they are causing us lots of trouble.
Well, I think that there's something in, John. I think this is the first time where I think the opposition have A, anticipated what we're going to do with Diaz up front, and then B, had a plan for it. I thought that's what you saw from them all the way through the match. And I think that was then compounded by the fact that there wasn't Szoboszlai on the pitch as well to go and at least repeatedly try and break that line through playing, like, for instance, against Tottenham. I think his average position on the balls it's higher than Diaz's, and it's the highest of any central player. and that wasn't happening either. So in the end, they've got 3 centre-backs where so much of the game's happening in front of them. I can barely remember any of them looking panicked, running around back towards their own goal. And when you've been listening to United supporters criticising their own team recently, one of the things has been, well, Martinez doesn't like turning round. De Ligt doesn't like turning round. He's playing Maguire. Maguire's not a big fan of turning round. In this game, it looked to me as though, at least in that first half period, and it's interesting that Gakpo gets his chance by virtue of running through, it was all the game was allowed to take place in front of Manchester United, and they got to decide where it was happening and where the line was.
Yeah, they were a lot deeper, though, is what you'd say. So when you're at home to Bournemouth, you're higher up the pitch, and so there's a lot more turning around to do. And I think that's what, talked before about maybe some teams are more suited to sort of playing away. I think that the problem that Manchester United in particular have got is that at home, people expect... The fans expect them to take the game to whoever they're playing. It's Bournemouth turning up. Forget about the league position. We're home to Bournemouth. We expect it. And so they're almost being forced in the Manchester United to play in a way that sort of doesn't suit them, really. Like, you can't sit back and counter Bournemouth at home if you're Man United. But so I think they were... But in this game, they were allowed to be sort of deeper, and that suits, Maguire, it suits De Ligt, it suits Martinez, it suits whoever you sort of want. And so I think, It is just sort of a different game to the ones that they've had recently, and it sort of suited the defenders, and you wouldn't be surprised if next week, whoever they're playing, that you see these problems again, and then our fans go, fucking hell, do you know what I mean? Look at them, why couldn't we cause them problems? It's just sort of where they are on the pitch and what they're being asked to do. That said, I'm not saying that Liverpool couldn't have done more, and I think Diaz did get a little bit lost. I think he's done well up there, and I wouldn't personally be, have to have the idea of saying, this front three sort of run its course. I think there's first of all, they're in there on merit, and the reason, for example, Darwin Núñez isn't starting is because he hasn't done well enough. I'm a bit surprised we've not seen a bit more of Jota since he's been back. It feels like we've been a little bit overly careful, but I'm not watching him in training and things like that, but so at the moment, those 3 are the ones that are in form, and the other 3 who were on the bench for varying reasons, sort of aren't in the team. And the only one that surprised me a little bit, maybe, as I say, is Jota. I think McAllister was trying to do what you're trying to do, and not just the shot that we said before. There was a couple of times when he made really good runs and he was trying to get in. I think the big difference is Jones. He just wasn't sort of at it at all. And there was, you talk about Szoboszlai, it's Jones who plays in the 5-0. Is it? Yes, he plays in the 5-0, and he's doing a pretty good Szoboszlai impression. He just didn't look at it at all in a way that, not to make excuses for him. I just wonder whether he's been unwell. So the Szoboszlai illness is a reminder that they are human beings, and they get sick and stuff like that. And so, there'll be sometimes a player just goes, I'm not well enough to play, and I think there'll be others when other people are going, do you know what, I'm not great, but someone needs to play, so I'll sort of step up. And I don't know if that was the case for Jones, and honestly, I'm not making excuses for him. He was poor, but it just sort of made me think with the Szoboszlai illness, because he just didn't look right at all. He looked a little bit ponderous.
It was his worst game in ages.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
facing his own goal, he was awful. He wasn't making the runs. It just wasn't Curtis Jones. Really.
And so the Curtis Jones we've seen that since he had a baby, basically would have made a big difference in that game. And instead, like you said, Neil, we got sort of a bit of a throwback to, and the sort of the bad care to sort of rolled into one. So I think that made a bit of a difference as well.
The other issue in amongst all of this, Rob, is that in front of that back 3, there's then effectively 3 centre-backs there. There's then effectively United are playing 4 centre-mids. I know that feels a generous description around Ahmad, because he does do more of his stuff in wide areas, but in this game, he holds a pretty central position. So United have got this 4 in the middle of the park with Bruno Fernandes, with Ugarte, with Mainu, and with Ahmad, who were constantly available, and I think that there was, again, that idea of make it bitty. It was interesting on the numbers that United have fewer pressures than Liverpool but make substantially more tackles. The idea is that Liverpool will come onto them and we will just snap into those challenges. If we give away a free kick, well, the thing is Liverpool will take a quick free kick. And it's not, but I think that was their plan, was to just sort of crowd that area and leave Liverpool struggling to get any rhythm in the play.
Yeah, whatever their plan was, their manager was gracious enough to say after the event in the post-match press conference, I'm not going to take any, and I don't think he was just being self-effacing. No. I'm not going to take any credit. There was no tactical. The reason we didn't win, we won. Got out the result, and the performance was nothing to do with our tactics. And obviously, that's going to be an overstatement. It was to do with our aptitude. What I noticed is when we were in those key moments in midfield, regardless of whether they outnumbered us at certain points, is we would have two men snapping into a challenge, and you expected, through the memory of seeing it time and time again, for a Liverpool player to emerge with the ball. There was just more bite in their lads, even when they had 1-on-2 at times, I thought. So I don't know if they beat us through some sort of tactical overload. I did wonder.
Well, he played his system. It was just his system.
It was just his. I mean, we can come on to talk about where I do think is fascinating. You want to talk about his system specifically is the first goal scorer is a centre-back. The one who nearly wins it for them at the end of the game is a centre-back. That's not an accident that happened. That's Ruben Amorim ball. You know, we all did a stint of research assuming he was going to be a Liverpool manager at one point. His centre-backs, he plays three of them. He often substitutes them in games. He sees them as key parts of the way his team attacks. So that was an accident. And I thought, that's the first time I don't know the press have got on to. The first time I've noticed that in Man United since he arrived. I thought our key problem was we weren't even able to use our fullbacks to augment our midfield. They were, for a variety of reasons, they were the weakest part of our team, along with the strangely below par Curtis Jones. Hard to make sense of.
Well, just on that, Mo, I think that United clearly overloaded Liverpool's right, their left.
Yeah.
Thought Trent was really poor in the game. But again, I thought we missed Szoboszlai. For me, this is all linked in with the Diaz thing. Szoboszlai, Salah, Nunez. That whilst Nunez hasn't been good enough in front of goal this year, what he's done is he's done loads of Salah's work for him when he's played. Mm-hmm. No one was doing Salah's work. And the tactic all season has been, so this isn't me having a go at Salah, Salah's been left to save his energy to be going forward. And other people have done his work, and no one did his work, and it just made us even more vulnerable on that side.
It did. And it's funny because we all kind of cast a various eye at the Newcastle game on Monday, and we were all like, well, if they play like this, then surely we're going to run all over them. I kind of knew in the back of my mind that they weren't going to play like that, simply because they couldn't do that again, and also because the personnel was going to be different. Amorim said that the tactics weren't going to be different, the personnel absolutely were. Casemiro, Xerxes, and Eriksen compared to Fernandes, Mainu, and Agate, night and day in terms of their bite, in terms of their energy, their application. And you got to see that and the difference that made.
By the way, sorry, Mo, just as a point, like Fernandes is madly disrespected by our fan base. Like, I know it's fun to have a laugh at him because he's a bit petulant. He's a really good footballer. And people talk like he's like this idiot rolling up to Anfield, like, and it's like he's really, really good.
I think that was his best game against us by some distance, which probably helped, because I think that's part of the reason, because previous to games he's been one of the ones who's taken the most blame from United players from not turning up. But yesterday, should I say, he was key in it, both defensively, keeping everyone else sharp, but also his intelligent use of space. So,
thought the kid was good. Mainu.
So going back to the fullbacks tactical thing. So there were definitely structural tactical issues that we had that made it worse. So there was a lot. So Fernandes was the key to it all, I think. So if you look at the way that Newcastle played against them, they basically went man for man into whenever United had the ball in their defensive area, every man kind of pushed up onto one of their own. And including Jacob Murphy, who was playing where Salah was playing, Jacob Murphy went out to the wing back, whereas Salah was going up against Martinez, which means that in theory it should be our right back who goes up against the wing back. But our right back was looking at Fernandes. The problem is that Gravenberch was also looking at Fernandes. So suddenly they both were like, oh, well, who's going over there? And the time it took them to work it out and then get over there, the ball was played around them. And that was happening time after time after time. And whether United knew that was going to be the case, or whether they just thought, well, Dalot and Fernandes are our strongest pair in terms of one side to another, so we're going to kind of utilise them, I don't know. But it was exacerbated because every time it works, it meant that they got more confidence from it, and it meant Trent in particular drained confidence. So there were structural reasons why it was hard for him, but then we have to also acknowledge, it was straight up one-on-one defending between him and Dalot. Dalot made him look stupid again and again and again. And it was one of those situations where you kept thinking, okay, he's going to win the next one. He's going to win the next one. He's going to win the next one. Then he lost the next one. And obviously after the game, Slot came out and was defending Trent, saying that it wasn't necessarily speculation, etc. Blah, blah, blah. But you do wonder if he's there sitting there thinking today, I probably should have made that change beforehand. There's the moment just after United take the lead where they're in the 6-yard box and it looks like the ball's coming to him and he stops to think, and Højlund gets in front of him and then Manuel gets the ball and you just think, come on, man, you got to get it, you got to snap out of this. At that point, I probably would have made the change. Slot didn't.
It would have got nasty though, you know. I was genuinely worried about his Xerxes moment, like honestly, genuinely worried about it. And then what's our move then? I think I would have changed the subs at 1-1. So he's getting ready to bring 2 forwards on, and then they score. I'd have sit one down, and they got badly up dead. And I'd have used that moment to do it. At 2-1 would have been another time to do it as well. I don't think he could have done it at 1-0. I'm glad he didn't do it at 1-0, no matter how, because it was nasty in lots of areas of the ground. I couldn't believe how vile it was around me towards Trent.
Was it?
Yeah, just over the line. Just like, listen, we've all moaned about a footballer, but just levels that are just not pleasant. But John, I wanted to leave, to be honest with you. I was just like, I don't care what the score. I don't want to be here anymore. Rough, it's not nice. And then I spoke to other people after the ground who were like visibly upset about like, and listen, like I've been to 1,000 football games. I'm not soft, you know what I mean? I'm not like, you know, it's not my first rodeo. I've heard like the worst things possible in football grounds, but the levels, I never thought, you know, just we've got a subscribers group and people are saying like, oh, you know, we never boo a player. I was like, were you there yesterday? Because I'd have maybe thought that a few days. If he'd have been hooked at 1-0, it would have been his Xerxes thing. And then what's the manager doing then? How do you sort of deal with that? And so I felt like I was glad
people are choosing this. People are choosing this. This is what antagonises me about it, John, all the way through. You know, when it was coming out, bits and pieces around the contract stuff. The thing I keep coming back to is you choose your own behaviour. Yeah. You choose your own behaviour in a crowd. You choose how you want to act. And my genuine position is people have got to make better choices. I don't think the player was very good at all. I think he was really poor. But people have got to make better choices.
Sorry. Guys, well, this is, I mean, the things that we've all lived through. I've lived through Steve McManaman, Sterling, and toxic in grounds at times with those two players. The problem is the mantra that this contract, the protracted contracting, isn't going to affect this title charge, only holds good until things go slightly awry.
Yeah. But we talked about this last week, didn't we? And we were in slight disagreements over, you know, is it a distraction? Will it be a distraction? And I sort of played it down, but what I did say is when it goes, it might really go like it did with Klopp. And we saw that massively on Sunday. As soon as the dam burst on Trent, you know, it was like everyone was like, this is exactly, and he got the full brunt of everyone's frustration, all the Madrid stuff. But it's like, you know, he was playing really poorly and his application wasn't good enough, but it just got to the point where, you know, you're like, we're here to try and help Liverpool win. Do you know what I mean? And we hate, and if you hate a Liverpool playing more than the whole Man United team combined, like something's gone wrong here.
But if we're at the point where
they need to deal with it now,
if we're at the point where we're fighting with each other and saying, I don't like that part of our supporter base anymore, whereas we were all united in, yay, we're going to win the league a week or so ago, we've got a problem that's emerging. And I think it's only going to take 3 games with Mo not scoring now, and Salah's and some will go, yeah, it's a contract. It'll only take 2 Virgil errors in a game before it's Virgil's contract. This was always going to be an issue, and the way round it is to fucking get it sorted, unfortunately. You know, and Arne Slot has done a great job at deflecting, but now, going into the very next game, it's going to be the first thing at the press conference, and he's not going to be able to say, hey, let's make some jokes about the contracts, because the media are going to get slightly more emboldened by it and go, hang on, Arne, you know, you say it's not affecting the players, it looked like it affected him. And also, it is now, you know, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is now going to affect him. Another bad game, and people are going to say it, and he's only a human young man.
Yeah, I think, well, Slot did come out after the game and said that it didn't affect him. He said 9 out of 10 people would say it did. I'm the one. And Of course he's going to say that because he's going to protect his own player. But I don't think everyone fully believes that's the case, because I think the problem that Trent has got, and the reason why I feel like it's so easy for people to turn on him, maybe in comparison to some other people who've been in that situation, is the way that he's dealing with it on the pitch. I think I was saying this to Andy before. There are times when players are having a bad game, and the way that they react to having a bad game is that they just work harder. I'm just going to keep running harder. I'm going to keep going it, and until I kind of fight my way out of that funk. It appears with Trent that he gets inside of his own head too much, and so you see them where he's not quite the moments where he's made a mistake and then he's jogging after it, or he's not finally putting as much effort in. That allows people to say, oh, he doesn't care, oh, he's down tools. I don't believe that for a second, because to be honest, the last time there was a big Trent discourse was 3 years ago, and we were saying people were saying all the same things, and that contract had nothing to do with it. Yeah. That was just how he deals with things in his own head. So if you look at his game, he was being hesitant in defence and he was rushing it in attack, and these are all evidence of someone who's thinking about things too much. And
but I would say to all of this, I think at that point 3 years ago, one of the things that was happening, I think, to Virgil and to Trent in 2022 was they weren't being tactically protected. And there was more and more emphasis on the two of them to do more and more as Liverpool's performance collapsed. I think there's a thing yesterday, genuinely, where with no Szoboszlai, with no Nunez, with no one to come and literally do 10 minutes in front of him, where you're the de facto right mid to help him out.
Konate as well, who dropped it out of it. The second goal, I actually don't think Trent does a lot wrong from it. They end up switch position, which can just happen sometimes. So Konate goes up for the header, it goes down the wide. Trent's there, he's back, he's sort of in position, if you like, and ends up sort of, and then the footballers do that all the time. It's not fucking Sabutio, do you know what I mean? They sort of move around. Konate should block that cross, but he's fucked.
He's knackered.
And so if Konate just blocks that cross, then no one's saying anything. It's like, oh, good defensive play by Konate. He's covered his fullback and stuff like that. He just hasn't got the energy then. But then it's another goal that's sort of come down the left. So there's ways he's unfortunate.
So this is what
doesn't help himself.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's a thing there where I think Gravenberch's a relatively solid performer, but he pulls to the right. He's not great. It's not as good as he was last week against West Ham, or as good as he was against Tottenham. So you got that one in there. As I say, there's no one coming and covering Salah all game. No one does. Salah's running for him, which is what's been happening all season. It's there in the numbers. It's there when you watch it. Salah's pressures in comparison to every other attacker who plays for Liverpool are minuscule. Every other attacker works harder than Salah, and we're all fine with it. This is not a criticism. It's like this is part of why, and part of how Salah's having the season that he's having. But someone else has therefore got to go and fill in that space. Yeah. And as I say, at times this season it's been Nunez, at times it's been Jota, and a lot of the time it's been Szoboszlai
and Konate.
Yeah, and Konate's strong enough normally, but as you say, he's knackered with 10 to go. Yeah. First game back.
I mean, is it the Martinez goal? I mean, Konate just stands off him. It's not. It was a bit of. This is where I'm not a point at the manager, but this is one where he took a calculated risk. He'd obviously seen Konate impress in training, and he put him into a game, I think, which was higher octane than perhaps he expected.
Yeah, I do agree.
It was too much for Konate that game. Everything that he dealt with it in most situations aerially very, very well.
I think he's good 10 to 70. I think he creeps into the game and then he's good, and then there's a period where I think if the manager had a move that he felt comfortable in, but he's thinking, he's probably looking at, he's looking at the bench and thinking like it's young players. It's the weather is just a massive thing. In the game, you're throwing someone into that. Quansah, who's maybe not as confident as he was, 6 months ago, and you're like, right, 20 minutes to go, all the best. The crowd's fucking all dreadful.
Yeah. But that wasn't front foot Konate, was it? He was, he was on his heels, not his toes.
He probably wished he would have done it now, but I can sort of understand why he doesn't.
Oh yeah.
So to your point about the doing other people's running, and this is something else that I've seen a lot of people say as well, is that maybe this was the game to bring in Endo. Maybe taking Grav off, maybe in a moment after we've taken the lead, where we've still got 15 minutes to defend, get fresh legs on, someone who's going to do that extra bit of running. He's of the profile of the we had on the bench, he's kind of the most like that. But I also kind of understand why he doesn't do it because
well, he said the midfield's non-existent by that point. Didn't he? Not after the game.
Yeah, but I was calling for the opposite at half time. I was calling for. I wanted 4 forwards on. I thought Jota would do more than a midfielder, and he actually did.
So you can do, in my mind, that you can have both of those things.
Yeah.
So you can have Jota on to do what Jones wasn't quite doing, and I felt like Jota did occupy the defence a lot more because that's the key with the whole Diaz being the forward thing. Because when Diaz does want to go out wide, yes, Gakpo goes in the central areas, but he's just there. If you watch it, he very rarely actually touches the ball in central areas.
Yep.
He's just there to kind of occupy defenders. It requires the attacking midfielder to come in there.
To someone break the line.
To break the line and to be that guy. And if you've got an actual forward doing that, then it makes a massive difference. But I think you can have both of those things together and it kind of complements the attack but also fortifies the defence. But like I say, the moment after we go in the lead, that's where Manchester United are at their worst for the whole 90 minutes. They're angry.
Agreed.
They look like they've lost their heads. They've lost their focus. And so you're like, okay, well, this is the time to go and score the third, kill the game.
3-1 looked much more likely than 2-2. As bad as we played, 3-1 looked much more likely.
So I understand why he doesn't say, I'm going to make a defensive change here. But as it turned out, with hindsight, it looks like maybe that could have been helpful.
The worst thing about the equaliser, John, is I feel like I've spent a lifetime watching that United score that goal at the Anfield Wrap.
It keeps in.
I've seen like a genuinely, it's happening before the whole move was developing before my eyes. I was just thinking, I was fucking seeing this film.
I've seen everyone score that goal at the Anfield.
I know, but there's something specific about United with it as well. You know what I mean? And genuinely, it was a good reminder of to the point earlier about. Yeah, but also just being up for the idea.
Gives a fuck? Honestly, why are they still singing about Diego Forlan? Of all the things, like no one gives a fuck about Diego Forlan scoring when we weren't very good. Honestly, God. They should just sing 20 times Man United for 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's what they should sing every time we play them.
Yeah, but instead, fuck it now. Absolutely, Jeff. But the thing is, we've talked about. Listen, this is a show where there's intelligent people in the room, and we talk about reasons why things might happen, but. At the end of the day, Trent needs to take personal responsibility as well for the situation and sort of what's going on and his own performance. He's poor. He's really, really poor, especially for the first goal. Watching it back after we'd done the post-match show, it's just not good. If you talk about application and stuff like that, like Mo said before, he's never been the type who's been like, oh, I'll lose it high, I'll parry it down and stuff like that. So, you can't look too much into the fact that he's not chasing back. He wants to go to Real Madrid and stuff like that. He's been, to be perfectly blunt, pulling out of tackles and not harrying back, since he sort of broke into the team. It's funny because when he's playing well, you use the word effortless, don't you? But it's a compliment. Oh, he's effortless. Do you know what I mean? And when he's crap, he's effortless in a bad way. I mean, so there has to be sort of this acceptance that he's just got this style. It's his personality. It's the way it is. When it looks good, it looks great, and when it doesn't, it looks pretty awful. And he's had these, games before, even maybe not sort of this extreme, but also, like Mo said, other players, like if Andy Robertson's struggling like he is the other side, he'll run a bit harder, he'll get his head down, he'll maybe throw a tackle in or something. Trent's not going to do that. He tried to play his way out, and actually, when we were at our best in the second half, he was actually really a key part of it. From 1 to 2, he's part of all those attacks, but he needs to be aware that there's just more focus on him at the moment, and whether that's sort of adapted his game or adapted his mentality, or he just fucking needs to play better.
But I think the thing with him, John, is when things aren't going right for him, for instance, a good one, Henderson was really good at turning a 5 out of 10 into a 7 out of 10 because you just keep it simple for a period, play his way back in, and suddenly, Jordan's fine again, he's had a ropey 10, but he's back and he's involved. And people didn't like Henderson, always remembered the ropey 10, whereas what I saw was the footballer who came out the other side, kept his head and kept it ticking, and just made it. Trent's way of doing that is, I'm going to try and play a big ball.
Yeah.
I'm going to fight. What you think I'm not playing? Well, fucking watch this.
Yeah.
And the problem is when you're trying that pass, even if you actually play a good version of that pass, someone might not make the run.
Yeah.
The touch might not be right. It might end up
that's
just
what he does at Arsenal, away at Arsenal, he's crap and then he makes a goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what he does. But I think that's going to be difficult. That is difficult in the environment where, your way of trying to fix this is. It's very high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
But the point is, in this context, in that weather yesterday, with everything going on, playing against Manchester United, the high risk bit is the high risk bit, and that's the way in which it goes.
But it needs. Yeah, it needs a resolution though because he's everyone's saying, "Oh, just bomb him out, play Conor Bradley," but that's unrealistic because of the number of games we've got. Conor Bradley can't play the next 3 games. Never mind the next 30. We've got Spurs Wednesday, then we've got Atkinson on Saturday, and then we've got Forest Tuesday.
The biggest game of our lives.
And so Conor Bradley can't play all those games. The manager didn't want to give him more than 10 minutes at the weekend because he's just sort of come back from Mizzou. So Conor Bradley can't. So which one? At least one. He might even end up playing 2. But he's definitely going to have to play 1. I think everyone sensible would agree. You know, which one is he playing and what's he doing in sort of that game? He's saying, okay, we'll bring Bradley in for
I think he's playing 2 of the next 3. I think Trent's going to be playing 2 of the next.
But he needs to play a lot better.
He's going to play Tottenham or Forest.
He just needs to play a lot better, and that's just what I mean about personal responsibility. He's not responsible for how the crowd turned. The crowd need to, but hopefully. Is that if that's fucking got it all out everyone's system or whatever, but they need to be more mature and think there's a league to win here, and if we're just screaming at Trent, we're making it harder for those footballers to play. So everyone needs to get a grip. If you've got out your system, whatever, you cross at footballers, you're angry at the young lad who maybe want to go and live somewhere else and earn some money, like sound, like if it. Hopefully the one thing is if it's all out now, because the crowd need to be much better and deal with this in a better way, because for selfish reasons for ourselves, like we're trying to win a fucking league, we're trying to win all these trophies, and if you're just turning up to scream at Trent, then just do it at the telly or do it at the Sky or something, like other lunatics
just don't fucking come.
Yeah, exactly. And so that Trent needs to sort himself out and either sign a new contract or whatever, or if he's decided he's going, he's almost better now. Say, listen, I'm going. Well, I'm going to put everything I've got, every ounce I've got, in right now until making sure that Liverpool win the league before I go. That's what he's sort of better to do it. But so the Slot's the one I sort of feel sorry for. I don't think there's anything more that he can do. But the others above Slot, if they thought that they can just ride this out and they thought that they can just look how many goals Mo Salah scored. This is brilliant. That's a wake up call for them that it can turn very, very quickly, and so everyone needs a big week. Trent needs a big week. He's going to play, like you said. I agree with you, Neil. I think it'll be 2 games. He needs to play much better. Is that keeping it simple? Is that just is it application? Is it if he wants to play himself out of it, all the best, because that can sort of go wrong. But he needs to realise that eyes are on him, and he needs to just fucking put some responsibility on and sort himself out. The manager's got some big calls to make in terms of selection. If he sees that type of performance again, he needs to act sooner, especially if it's away where it's sort of a little bit easier. But above them, it's come to the point now where like Sunday was a massive wake up call that we can't just drift to a league title. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it was a wake up call. It is. Whether we approve or we don't approve of people being nasty towards young footballers, clearly, and I'd agree with you, John, and echo those sentiments. Behave yourself, boys and girls, if you're being nasty to a young footballer in that ground. It's stupid and pathetic. But unfortunately, it is what it is. The discourse has been building online. The media ask a question about his contract. It's not going away. We've hoped that it wouldn't become toxic. We now have had a big window into how it can become toxic. Now, if you're a manager, I do think there comes a point, and it's very, very soon, where you've got to make one of the calls. You've got to say, is Trent either going to be a redemptive figure, or is he going to be our Marcus Rashford I've heard bandied about? Is he going to be the toxic thing? At the end of the day, leagues are won by beautifully harmonious teams that are in sync. A group of men who, for in moments in time, of course there'll be stories in the league where somebody punched somebody in the face in the run into the title. But broadly speaking, it's got to be done with a supreme amount of harmony. And I think if I'm the manager, who is the only one who can really control that process, in the here and now, I'd sort of say to them, if I got the boy, to use the term, in the office, I'd say, can you do something here? You can sign this contract, kill it all, create a massive feel-good factor around yourself. Your next bad performance isn't going to have the same weight to it as if you haven't signed your contract, or if you don't want to, because you're genuinely undecided, or you want to leave this club. I am going to tell you this, and I'm not going to do it out of spite. I'm going to have to take you out of the fray more often than not, because I think it can't help the club. And you love Liverpool Football Club. I love Liverpool Football Club. Trent, for the club's good first, but also for your own, I'm going to just take you out of it. And it's not even a factor of how well or not he's playing. The situation around him is now hit a toxic point that I don't think gets neutralised very, very easily.
So a couple of things here. One, I don't think it's surprising that there's been a news story saying that Liverpool finally offered him a contract and what the details of that contract are. So it feels like for the first time Liverpool have kind of made a move to say, okay, we've done something now. We aren't sitting on our hands. We have done this. So now the ball is very much in his court from that perspective. Like you say, in terms of he has the power to make the decision whether this goes on or not by making a public statement if he so wishes. If I'm the manager, I'm definitely playing him in the next game. I'm like, in my opinion, okay, the way to do this, the way to eliminate a bad performance is to immediately follow it with a good performance. So you're playing against Spurs and you're going to play fucking well. You're not playing against Accrington Stanley, but if you don't play well against Spurs, you're not playing against Nottingham Forest either.
That's fair.
I think that's how I would say, okay, I want you to prove to me that this isn't going to be a problem. In terms of how the fans deal with it, that's a slightly different and more difficult conversation. But what all Arne Slot can do is that. Another thing I would say, and I think this is a really important point to mention in terms of the whole disruptive element, I don't think it's going to be a problem in the dressing room. I think we've
Virgil
seen...
looked like he wanted to kill him. Like.
Virgil looks like he wanted to kill him. And Virgil will probably tear an absolute strip off him in the dressing room, and then it'll be forgotten. I think players are better at dealing with this kind of scenario than we are, because they do it a lot more often at times that we aren't even aware of.
Virgil wants to win the league.
And Virgil very much wants to win the league.
Even if some lunatics at Anfield yesterday didn't.
And he knows better than most of us that we've got a better chance with a good Trent Alexander-Arnold playing in that team.
But he won't tolerate any weak links either. If it continues to go awry.
But again, I think this is the difference. I think he will know the difference between whether or not this was a one-off where the crowd really didn't help him, and it's something that you can say, okay, well, next time we won't bother with that, and be a little bit more conciliatory about it, putting our arm around him and say, look, I know this is difficult for you, but you're a great player, you can power through. Or the opposite, as you say, where you feel like his head is gone and we're not going to be able to get the best out of him anymore, and then suddenly we do have to look at an alternative. I really think that that's the last resort, though.
Of course.
All right. Next thing I wanted to talk about was I thought Elliott played well. I thought of the subs, I thought he was the one who certainly caught my eye the most. I think it's around time he starts a game of football.
Yes. I think I was too much in my own head to know who was playing well in the last 10 minutes particularly, so I'm not going to be the most useful responder to that question, I can't lie. But I do I agree with that. I mean, I think you could see, I don't know, I think you could see that Curtis's race was run early enough yesterday that we had to make the change. But he makes the change, the Jota change, before he makes the Elliott change, doesn't he?
He comes up with Gakpo.
So yeah, but having said that, the opportunities to really test your theory there about Elliott, and I think you're correct, broadly speaking, lie perfectly in front of him. Tottenham, I don't expect him to go super strong, but super strong could include a team with Harvey Elliott in it. Accrington, I expect it to be quite a strong Liverpool team, but only because loads of good players haven't been getting games and will need games, and Harvey Elliott. So if Harvey Elliott, I'd be surprised, I think, if he doesn't start in the next two games. I'm going to go that far. He might not start Tottenham, he'll definitely start Accrington. Then it's all on him to play himself into that position to play against Nottingham Forest. But we do have to bear in mind, Gravenberch has had the season of his life. McAllister is getting better and better and was probably my man of the match yesterday. And Szoboszlai is playing better and better. So it's hard to see, apart from off the bench, or he really needs to edge himself ahead of Curtis Jones, I think is the bottom line.
Go on.
What I was going to say, I mean, I think so. I can see a world where Elliott plays where Salah would play against Accrington. Do we think that that's a possibility for Spurs?
Chiesa was on the bench, so Chiesa might get it. Yeah.
But so
Chiesa, Nunes, Jota is that front three versus Accrington. It looks at today where we are.
Well, I mean, for Accrington, you've also got Jayden Dance to throw in,
and you've got Naoni.
Yeah,
I would. We don't know what the plan is with
people
Jayden
need
Dance
minutes
for the end of the season. Even if it's a case of, well, we're going to loan him away at the end of the window, I think that the best way to do that is to give him a game to show people what he can do. So I would be earmarking him for that, which by default then means that maybe Nunes or Jota gets the start against Spurs. and then you look at.
You could do a 60-30 switch as well.
Yeah, I would want Jota to be starting for the Forest game. I'm not out on the Diaz as a 9, but I just think that the idea that that's going to be the form, the priority for you going forward, I think is a bit flawed.
Well, I think the irony with it, Mo, is actually it makes the squad fitness management a little bit difficult. Without sort of being daft about that, like I think both Jota and Nunez could do with playing against Tottenham. I think they could both do with getting quality time on the pitch. That becomes difficult because I think that the manager's been quite clear where he wants to play Jota, which means one of them's got to go and play left if you're going to play them both, or you're going to play one off. At which point then I'm saying, but I want Harvey Elliott to start.
Yeah.
And this is so by virtue of, he's done a good job through much of the season working between the two left-sided players. But now he's got both left-sided players where you're probably looking at both of them thinking, I'd be fine with them not starting against, fine with them not starting against Spurs, fine with them not starting against Atkinson. But someone's got to all the way through this, and it becomes a little bit tricky to manage.
And then with Nunez, do you feel like if you start giving him games on the left, that it kind of starts to confuse him, and it starts to be a little bit?
He couldn't be any more confused.
No, but it throws for me. It throws back open the idea of doing. I think Salah's starting against Tottenham. By the way, I could be wrong, but I think Salah's starting against Tottenham.
There's no. I don't think there's anyone who won't play between now and Forest. I don't think personally. I think it's too long.
Well, that's
one exception. I think that there's a chance that he uses. I think he's rested Gravenberch judiciously through the season, and I wondered if he might just continue to do that.
So he doesn't play either game.
I think it's possible Gravenberch doesn't feature in either game. I think he's the only one.
Does the goalie as well? But
there was a sense yesterday. One thing we haven't mentioned thus far. That sometimes, and it has been commented on various quarters, that sometimes 7 days is too much of a break.
Well, they all went away as well, so they all have 3 days off, which I think
didn't train till Thursday.
I think I remember being a bit worried just for this game. I think long term, I think it's a good thing to do because it's probably the last chance to get some time off and things like that. Obviously, there's an international break, but then they're all playing. They're sometimes playing more. So I think when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's nice. But I thought I wouldn't be surprised if this hurts us against United.
Yeah, no, I think that's
why I think Accrington might be. It's interesting the way Pep Guardiola used to treat those kind of sequence of fixtures. He was clearly very rhythm focused, so you'd sometimes see him play the equivalent of it, like it was Wickham. They seem to get every other season. For that game, you wouldn't get the kids. He'd just treat them. So say you've got a first 11, 70%, 5% of the first 11 play against Spurs, 75% play against Accrington. 85% against Forest, if you follow my thinking. So I think people are going to be surprised just how strong the Accrington team is.
Well, we'll deal with Atkinson separately. I've got to give John something to do on midweek extra.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll
for John.
But we're going to talk about Trent's new deal. It's fine.
Excellent news.
Announced Thursday morning.
Jesus Christ! Can we all just chip in for that deal and be done with it?
All lines up, good stuff, John. Marvellous.
Not money. Not in January. Ask me in May.
I was going to say, he doesn't chip in for me.
John, there's enough of us.
I want to do the big picture in a minute, Rob, but let's start because we moved there with the idea of what he should and what we expect him to do against Tottenham. I've, in my head, got the idea that I think the Kelleher start. Stop me whenever you want, Roberto. Kelleher starts. Trent.
Nailed on.
Van Dijk and Shimikas start.
Yes, with Quansah alongside.
Do you think Quansah?
I think so. Or it could be a Konate 60-minute, 45. No, I think Quansah. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yes, I do know.
I would start Quansah, but I would want Konate to get more minutes under his belt because I don't think I'm going to give him any against Accrington. So I would say maybe a 60.
Wouldn't you?
No, I just think that 65, 35. So 35 for 65 for Quansah, 35 for Konate against Spurs, and then give Quansah. Or maybe give Konate 10 minutes against Accrington, but give Quansah the majority of that game, and then have Konate back for Forest.
Yeah, he could play Quansah in both, couldn't he? And just play Konate in one and Virgil in the other, and then just sort of see how that goes. And you're almost given that, thinking what's better for Konate. Is he better having a week off now and then starting Atkinson, having the quick turnaround, or would you throw him in again from Wednesday? I think either way, you probably only get 70, and you sort of look at can you drop back an Endo or sort of whatever? But that sort of feels quite a nice little arrangement for me, and it gets Quansah 2 games as well, and gets him, because I think us all having a little bit more reassurance on Quansah's level and will be a sort of a positive thing, not least for the manager, I think. And so at least we feel like, well, if there is a situation where we need, both him and, everyone else, feel a little bit sort of, more sure about it. And so I think playing him in both and making sure that both, especially Konate, but probably end up being Virgil as well, get a start each, will be no bad thing, I don't think.
Midfield, John, I've written down Curtis Jones, Alexis McAllister and Harvey Elliott.
I'd like to see Elliott. You've taught me into that. I think Elliott's ended up being a bit unfortunate, I think, because last year for Jurgen, when he needed an attacking sub, he put Elliott on. And this year, the manager looks like he'd rather go with 4 forwards, the Gutmann approach, to call it. And so he looks to me like...
He's gone full Gutmann.
Yeah. So even when Elliott...
Got a kebab.
Candle in it.
Poor Luke Littler over there. So he was the manager. Even when he was starting, he was the manager's attacking sub. Whereas now he's the new manager is preferred in a sort of a different way, and so he's not even getting sort of a lot of minutes off the bench. But I think if Szoboszlai is still not right, and let's assume that he isn't, if he's sort of not well enough to feature at all on
Sunday, Wednesday, I'm saying he's still on Lemsip.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think?
He's better.
Good immune systems, these lads. It's only one day in bed.
I'd leave it till Saturday, and so I would go. I would play. I'll use the opportunity to play Elliott.
I think it's more that. I think
that attacking midfield role, and then McAllister and either Jones or Gravenberch, because I'm not having Gravenberch anywhere near Atkinson, so I wouldn't mind him starting this one.
I wonder. I mean, I'm like Rob. I think Szoboszlai might be back.
I do,
and I wonder whether or not Spurs is a decent opportunity to try him in the 2. And to say to Mac, look, you've played fantastic the last 2 games. Have a rest. Get 20 minutes at the end. Don't play with Atkinson. Go for Forest.
So go Jones or go Gravenberch and Szoboszlai.
Gravenberch and Szoboszlai with Elliott ahead of them.
I think he needs to have a look at what he does when he can't play Gravenberch. That's what I think. Well, so I think he needs to have a look at what he does when he. So that's why I'd look at Jones in the 6.
I think we're going to win that game or not lose.
I think he needs to look at. I think he wants to look at what that is to play Curtis Jones in the holding role. He does it against Newcastle for half an hour. Does it really well against Newcastle for half an hour. It looks to me like he is the cab off the rank. So that's why I want to see Jones there, because I think that if later in the season there's a bit of a niggle, you need to rest Gravenberch, you've got league games, Champions League games, we hope, pressure on everything, we hope, then I think that's where I think I'd like to know what Curtis looks like in that role.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, obviously there's still Endo, but it's still a very different way of doing that thing. So whether or not he thinks that that's something that we can ever do in a quote-unquote big game from the start, that's the thing. Whether or not he's more of a finisher. Like, to be honest, when we signed Endo, in my mind, he was doing the Milner role.
Lots of 15s, lots of 25s.
Yeah. Finishing, cleaning up, getting the odd yellow card, but just basically slowing the game down before we can win.
Captain into Liverpool against Atkinson.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. So you might be right. You might be that we need to look at a real, true Gravenberch alternative. And again, like, he probably wasn't at his best against United. I feel like, I mean, the Martinez goal, he runs off the back of him as well as Trent. So there is that as well. But yeah, there are options, and I think for the most part, we're in a situation where we're going to be gaining, because we are going to be in a situation where we can really play nearly everyone. I mean, Joe Gomez is currently, if we're saying the Szoboszlai's fine, Joe Gomez is currently the only one who's unavailable. So we have got some good options, and we can start to kind of fiddle around with things a little bit, I think.
I think we're ignoring one thing here, though, how he views that Tottenham game in terms of our season, in terms of its effect on the psychology of the squad and the club. I don't think, especially after what feels like a defeat against Man United, he wants to wake up beaten 4-2 at Spurs because he put out a half-arsed team on Thursday.
I don't think it's half-arsed to use Curtis Jones to the whole.
No, but I think if we're talking people like Endo, I'm
not talking Endo. I'm
all right. Let's put it this way: Spurs on their day can score goals against you, right?
They did it against us.
They did against us. I think he will think, my first priority is to win that football match. Not in a life and death way, I'll accept that, but I think his first priority is to win that football match, and that's why I think he will play Gravenberch and build out from there. I don't think he'll go, I want to have a look at Curtis Jones. I don't think he'll allow that thinking in at this particular. I think against Accrington you can, or if it would be in the early stages of the League Cup, but I think at this stage and this point of the season against that opposition, I think he will put the blinkers on and go, how am I going to win this match?
Okay, I agree with you and disagree with you and him, if you see what I mean, in equal measure. In that I don't think that this is that important a game, but I think that it is obviously impacted by what's happened against Manchester United. That said, I think his front three will be Salah, Jota and Diaz.
That sounds about right to me, yeah. I think so.
I think that...
Surely the temptation to pick the three who scored 6 there last week.
Yeah. And again, I think that since we played them, Spurs have actually got weaker defensive. They had even more defensive injuries. So you could say that whether or not you don't want to be giving them any kind of encouragement by playing quote-unquote weaker team, I think if we've still played a very, very strong attack, I think that will kind of mitigate anything like that. So I think as well that we have to kind of get our head around the idea that just because we're making changes doesn't mean to say we're putting out a weak team.
No.
We've got a good squad and we need to be able to keep everybody involved. So I don't think that if Gravenberch doesn't play, for example, it's because we're underestimating Spurs. I think it's because he thinks, well, Curtis Jones can do this job and I need to see it. That doesn't mean to say Gravenberch won't be on the bench in case he's wrong.
All right, then. The bigger picture, briefly, Rob. The key thing to take from the weekend is we still decide where the line is. Arsenal need to go for the remaining 18 games at 2.5 points a game to get themselves to 85. So far, Arsenal are going at 2 points a game, so that is a bit of a shift, a bit of improvement. Although the fixture list does at some point ease on Arsenal. Chelsea looks sort of finished now. You get the impression they probably needed to win at the weekend and have us and Arsenal drop points to keep themselves involved. It's a 2-horse race, but Liverpool decide where the finish line is.
Yes, it's a 2-horse race. I think yesterday was a little bit of a reminder that you can lose form and one game not winning can become 2 or 3, and before you know it, things feel a lot less comfortable. I think the Arsenal result gave us a feeling that we could put ourselves, as we said at the beginning, put ourselves where we could see the finishing line. I think we're back in the world of reality again. We only need to run at about 2 points a game, don't we, to their 2.5, and we'd end up around the same place, probably a point ahead of them. So that's the interesting thing. I think the key feature of this title race is the month ahead now. Both Liverpool and Arsenal, having dropped points, can be said to be not in the peak of their form, and both have interesting months ahead. I think they've got to play City, Wolves away. They've got to play Tottenham at home. Yeah. They've got to play somebody else quite tough.
Well, they've got Villa and they've got United in the Cup as well. And Newcastle are going to kick fucking lumps out of them.
And they've got Champions League business to deal with as well still, albeit they're handily placed.
Eddie Howe's team of groks.
Right.
Sharpening the studs as we speak.
In this same phase, Liverpool have got to show the quality of champions to go to places like Brentford and treat them with professional disrespect and just beat them on their own ground. They've got to put people like Forest in their place, and they've got to put
Bournemouth in their place,
and not be error prone against Ipswich as they showed against a team like Fulham. Then Ipswich are a little bit resurgent. So fortunately for us, I don't think we're navigating anything too hard in the Cups. Accrington's a nice draw for us. We've got 2 not quite dead robbers in the Champions League. And Spurs, it's a bit of a free hit because
Spurs are not sharpening the studs.
No, it's a bit of a free hit, this one, because it's not the end of it's not the end of the world if we go out. So I think all the sort of things are in place for us to position this as to being our title within the next month, but we've got to go out there and do it.
Okay, excellent. You happy with that?
Yeah.
Sense from Gutmann?
For a change.
If only we did a show about this kind of thing.
Well, no, exactly. That's why I went to you on it. I felt like I was putting my best man on it when I went to that point.
Should we reveal now, for those who are tuning in for the first time, we do a magnificent show called The Overview. It means, look, the BAFTA have looked at awards for it, haven't they, Neil?
Yeah, the ratings are off the scale.
The ratings are off the scale. It's called The Overview Show. We tend to look at a group of Liverpool matches in the manner I've just sort of concisely described, and we predict what's going to happen, and people just love that shit.
I think it's important to remember, for all of our frustrations about how that game went down yesterday, that Arsenal will come away from this weekend more annoyed at their draw than we are. They are the
That'd
ones.
be some achievement. I'm very annoyed, Mo.
Oh, exactly. but that's the point. Is that
they need to catch us.
They need to catch us. So they will have looked at it and they will actually be more annoyed after us drawing because it's like, oh, imagine if we'd won. That's the way. And so every
you can underestimate my annoyance.
Every game week that they don't gain on us is a game week lost.
Yeah. I don't think they're as annoyed as you think of that final whistle. I think they're going, thank Christ for that.
Oh, you don't know many Arsenal fans.
Yeah, you need to dip into our
I don't intend to.
There we are. Do not let Gutmann near Arsenal Twitter. It's not worth it. Not worth it for anyone. Excellent stuff indeed. If you've watched this, Patrick Needham has looked after the images, ably supported by Jordan Singleton. If you've listened to this, and God bless you if you have, Andy Heaton's looked after the sound all the way through. Across the room in the chairs, we've had Rob Gutmann, we've had Mo Stewart, we've had John Gibbons. Liverpool decide, we decide. You decide the way in which you are on the ground. You decide the way in which you're going to behave towards footballers. You just get to choose. That's the way it works. And Liverpool also still get to choose how many points you need to win the league. That's Liverpool's job. Ours is to get behind them. See you later on.